Good morning, America. How are you? Monday morning radio. We'll be 500 miles before the day is done. I'm the train they call the City of New Orleans. I'm your native son. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world-famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, where the sun always shines and running trains is a pleasure in climate-controlled comfort. Now, with all that being said, Jelsma Graphics sponsors Show and Tell every Monday morning. They're the people that make all the embroidered railroad clothing that you have seen for the last 38 years. Now, we will be at the Big E train show in Springfield, Massachusetts. The whole crew of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad that you see on all these YouTubes of the Show and Tell. We're going to be at the show. Greg Turn, our cameraman, better known as number 2, he'll be there. And Richard New, he does a lot of videos that shows you how the different buildings. And they have 8x10 glossies of themselves so they could sign autographs for you and take pictures with you. So that's this coming weekend. The weekend of the 26th to the 27th, it's a Saturday and a Sunday, at the New England State Fairgrounds, West Springfield, Massachusetts, the Big E, the Amherst Train Show. Stop by and say hello. And with all that said, Show and Tell is starting right now. Show and Tell starts right now, and as always, we have an exciting show. And I'm really excited about this train that we're going to talk about because, once again, it's another favorite of mine. And what it is, it's the Great Northern Red River. And it was called the Red River Limited, but it ran from St. Paul, Minnesota, Minneapolis, to Grand Forks, North Dakota. And it was 325 miles. It was a regional train. And back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, the railroads had a lot of regional trains. And you know what? That's something that we just don't see today. Amtrak now is starting to add a lot of the regional trains. For an example, there's they have 2 or 3 a day running between Chicago and St. Louis. They've got from Detroit to different places, and naturally the Northeast Corridor. But all over the United States, they had a lot of regional trains. And the Red River was a very popular train for business people. And it was kind of a very unique train. Great Northern, from the American Car and Foundry, ordered 2 sets, one for the International, which was went into Canada via the West Coast, and the Red River. And these cars were pretty much alike. Now, they really doctored up the insides of these cars. What we have here is, it was a 5-car concept. It was always pulled by an E7 electromotive, and they had a full baggage RPO. They had 3 coaches, and at the end of each coach they had murals of different parts of from North Dakota and Minnesota scenes. And the coaches, I'm going to show you a real quick picture of the coaches. Now, these coaches, you could see here, they were very luxurious seats. They tilted all the way back. They were very wide, and they had chair car attendants for each car in heavy peak season. This train had a lot of employees, and during the winter months when it wasn't as heavily traveled, they would have 1 car attendant to take care of the 3 cars. In the summertime, they would add 2 to 3 chair car attendants, and then they had an observation car that was very unique, and American Car and Foundry made this just especially for the Red River. It was a dining car and a cafe car and a lounge, and it was a revenue lounge, and a lot of trains didn't have revenue lounges, and what that meant is that if you wanted to sit back there, you had to pay an extra fare to sit back there. Now, this took 6.5 hours, and the train would leave St. Paul at 5:30 at night, and it was designed that way for a lot of reasons. For the heavy traffic on the Great Northern, because the Great Northern had the Winnipeg, they had the Western Star, and they had the Empire Builder, and then they had a couple mail trains, and so it was a heavily scheduled route to Grand Fork, North Dakota, but it was heavily traveled by business people, and so it left at 5:30 and would get in at midnight. And the business people would have a nice dinner on the train, and then they'd get into their hotel, and then it left in the morning at 7:30 and would get in at 2 in the afternoon. The observation car had a full dining crew. They had 2 cooks in the diner. They had a lounge counter car. They had an employee doing that, and then they had an employee taking care of the people for cocktails, soft drinks, and all that. And so they had they had 1, 2, 3. They had 4 people in this car, and if it was in the summertime, they had 5, 6, 7. They had 7 crews, plus they had a dining car steward in there, that was 8, and then along with the conductor and the rear brakeman, along with the front end crew. So it was a very costly train for the Great Northern for employees, but it was a great revenue producer because it was heavily patronized, and the crew would stay in the observation car and for the night, and some would stay in the observation and some would stay in the RPO. They did not have facilities in Grand Fork, North Dakota, for steam heat. So all of these cars had what they called Baker heaters. And during the winter, those Baker heaters had to really work overtime because Grand Fork, North Dakota is very, very cold. And so it was far colder than Minneapolis and St. Paul, and that's always cold. And so this was what we call the Red River. And now what I have here to show you guys is I have this particular Red River observation car is scratch built. And the rest of the cars, the 3 coaches are Rapidos, and then Walters RPO, and then a Broadway E7. And this is a brass car of the Red River, and I just wanted to show you guys that this whole set was available in plastic or it was in brass, and here's the brass observation. And so the Red River had a really upscale cars on it. Once again, they had murals on the wall depicting the different places in Minnesota and in North Dakota, and it was absolutely kept spotlessly clean because it was heavily crewed. As years would go by, in the mid-60s, they eliminated the observation, which took care of the kitchen crew, and they had one particular car attendant, and then the conductor, and it was kind of sad, but that's what happened with the decline of the passenger service. And the regional trains were very important to the railroads. They fed a lot of main trains. This one here was basically designated from St. Paul, Minneapolis to Grand Fork, North Dakota. Very few people would get on that and change trains. That's where they would go. And so the Great Northern Red River Limited, and that's the way it is at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, where running trains is an absolute pleasure.